role that's not really them. They tend to act in ways that they wouldn't, and for people that are timid, that helps a lot because now they don't feel that they're stuck in their persona. In other words, when you let someone pretend they're someone else, like actors,
Right.
they get to have more confidence in what they're saying.
Right, because it's not actually them, so maybe they
It's like
won't
their
be held.
proxy.
Right, so it's like they won't be totally held accountable, so they could take some risks because it's not quote unquote them, right?
Yeah, it's like their avatar or their proxy.
Okay,
Jason,
cool.
what did you learn week 1?
I think the biggest thing I learned in week 1 is that it's real easy to get involved in a gaming situation or a role-playing situation if you can be someone other than yourself. For me, I basically saw it as like a creative writing exercise in a game. And for me, it was really
Yeah.
easy to get involved in creative writing. So the transfer was instantaneous for me.
Yeah, the way you see it, or the way you approach it.
And I have something to add to that. It goes along with what Deborah said, and I think role playing only works if the students get into it. If they're not into it, it doesn't work. It just fails completely. So
Next, Deborah? Not sure, or Katerina,
Right.
one or the other.
Okay. One of the things that it reinforced for me working with simulations is that there has to be some feeling of authenticity, even if it's a fantasy, but some feeling of authenticity in whatever the storyline is, so that there's some emotional engagement. And this really resonated because, and I've done a lot of simulations with children, but also with adults, and in order to get people engaged, part of the motivation really is in pulling them in emotionally, and that really can only happen if for some reason they really see it as either both relevant and or real and or just engaging.
I thought of, it wouldn't take much to create a sort of a role-playing game that, with no programming whatsoever. You could just sort of write out a script like those books, that someone mentioned this, that, you finish with a certain chapter and you answer yes, no, and then you go on to whatever page, et cetera, et cetera. So you could actually sort of write up a script. You could use a role-playing die, on the web, and that alone could be a role-playing game, and you could write, it didn't have to be D&D, it could be the photo hunting journalism game, or the, what would you do if you were Caesar game, or, something like that. Or, answer your math questions correctly game. So that was my thought, like, it doesn't actually take that much to make some kind of a role-playing game.
Because that was when I understood that I could really quickly and easily put my kids in a novel or get them to understand a character. So I really liked that too.
All right, great.
I tend to look at this stuff through the technology perspective, and the fact that we can play RuneScape or Second Life or World of WoW in real time with these 3D worlds, that's what I walked away from not being a gamer at all. That's what I walked away from week 2, was the technology that's driving these games.
for what I chose a Wii active fitness, and there is assessment or progress, checking your progress through journals and such after each workout. So it was really easy for me to see how that could be assessed. I have a little bit more problem trying to see how I can use it within my classroom and assess it.
I would say the assessment was that's okay. I would say the assessment was my favorite part too, because I chose to do it in Farmville, which I was not anxious to be a part of on Facebook, but my kids have loved that I am on there. They're all fighting over being my neighbor. They love to talk about their animals, and it's actually been a really cool thing for me to get to know my kids better.
Okay, I can go now. For me, RuneScape has been a big frustration because not necessarily the tool itself is actually the access of the tool. Even tonight, trying to get where everyone is at, it's just been very frustrating. But this week, just with creating the games, I found it very easy to do. Just going back to the creative writing aspect I was talking about earlier, it was just really easy to just put it together. Now, the trick will be in the game that I created is applying it to my students.
Yeah, me too. And maybe I would have eventually realized that, say, autistic kids, or it's a way for them to be social. Like, they like things to be organized, and real life is totally unpredictable. But in the limited conduits of online sociability, for some people, for all the people who are like, oh, everyone's being online and no one's being for real anymore. For some people, it's very stressful to interact with other people in person, and it's easier for them to interact with people online. And maybe that is a step, that for people who have less social skills, maybe it's actually a step towards full sociability, and feeling proud of helping other people. It's just less stressful for them. So, I think that's a good argument, or a good, anecdote for people who are sure that anything social online is just, dissolving our society. For the people who were never part of our society, maybe that can help them participate. All right.
Actually, I really appreciated our guest speaker, because all of this is a revelation for me. Going into RuneScape, the first time, I was really sort of blown away, because I really had never experienced anything like it. And to be able to have and understand, appreciate the perspective that a child with learning differences really could find a way to excel and find a voice in this environment really was, I thought, a little bit inspirational. In terms of assessment, I created an assessment for the game that I created, the adventure for the first week, and that exercise helped me, I guess, to see some of the dimensions of the game and the idea of how we really would sort of capture information through the gaming process.
Quest Atlantis that I liked. In the Teacherville section, there was what seemed to be classroom setups, and I thought that was really interesting. There was one that was specifically for elementary or this or that, and I like the atmosphere where other teachers could meet and have a discussion. I thought that idea was really interesting, and I liked Quest Atlantis a little bit better than the other ones that we've done so far, just because I can show my administration how I could use it in my classroom easier than the other one, like RuneScape, or because that's kind of who you have to please. So I think that would be accepted more easily.
I would agree with that. I'll add in too, because there were some spots that I just thought my kids would not be into this, but there were a lot of aspects that I really liked about it. The peer evaluation and some of those aspects I just thought were really cool. Had great potential.
All right, I'm bored with this landscape now. My visuals are really boring, so I'm just going to walk around, and why don't you just follow me, and we'll all just tape it, because the swamp is so boring.
It kicked me out. I gotta go in again.
All right. Well, we'll wait here till a few of you show up. And okay, a week. What I was surprised, like when I first saw Quest Atlantis, I was like, it's kind of like a cheap Second Life, or I wasn't enthralled with it or anything. But actually, how Joyce had like the wrong sort of account, and we couldn't see her, and she couldn't see us. I actually thought, and I put this in the discussion board today, that she should get like 1,000 points extra credit, because that showed me how if I set something up for my students, we'd be totally safe. No one else could get in, nothing creepy. I mean, everything I don't like about Second Life is gone.